All right, it is podcasting time. Glenn Power is here. I'm James Piecowye. I got a question for you.
Oh, no.
Beavis and Butthead.
Great show. I was too young to watch it. And that's why it was so good.
So, I've never been a Beavis and Butthead aficionado until very recently because of Instagram.
Yeah.
And Instagram is constantly playing clips. I mean, I don't know what I'm looking at that suddenly has Beavis and Butthead appearing. And Beavis and his Mr. Cornholio.
Yeah.
Which my sense of humor can't get enough of Mr. Cornholio.
Yeah.
And then all I'm thinking as I'm watching this, because I remember my boys used to always want to watch this show. This is not kids programming.
No.
But kids seem to be talking a lot about Beavis and Butthead.
Yeah, it's the cartoon of it, right? That's the thing. When I was at primary school, so I would have been, my first memory of Beavis and Butthead, I would have been no older than 8 or 9. No older than that. And it was on late on a Friday night in the UK on Channel 4, I think it was. It'd be like 11 o'clock at night or something. It was on, obviously, to avoid kids watching it. But it's a cartoon. What do you want us to do?
Yeah, exactly.
You know, my dad's passed out already. My mum's asleep. TV's on. So, yeah, great. But like you say, it comes back through, same with music. Instagram reels. People using like old songs and thinking they've just discovered it.
Well, there was another one. That's a whole. So now you know the Beavis and Butthead has reemerged, and that is a Powerworks podcast must now. Go watch some of that. It's really bad, actually.
It is. Yeah, you won't be able to make a show like that today.
No. Then I've notoriously gotten in trouble at work for my professor dancing. And then this morning, what do I see? Some lady who does dancing. She's up at number 92, and she does them to old hits. And I'm thinking, I got to get back in the game.
Get back on it, James.
Hey, thank you very much for tuning in. If you're at 100.3, the home of news, sport, and conversation, this is the Powerworks Podcast. We are going to be your company for the next hour. If you're getting us on Spotify, if you're getting us on YouTube, if you're getting us on whichever streaming platform this is that you're listening to us, welcome. Please, can I ask you please to like us? Give us a like, give us some love, subscribe so that you can get the feeds that we do as well as the shorts. Maybe you're watching on a short, but really, give us some love. We'd really appreciate it, and it's what keeps us doing this, by the way.
Nobody's listening on Google Podcast because they got rid of it. I'm stuck now, forever stuck with YouTube Music, which is the worst app on a phone.
Spotify. Just go to Spotify.
Everything else is Spotify. There are a couple of things I only see on YouTube.
And look, you video lovers, those who want to see us here in the pop-up studio, the Powerworks garage.
The sweatbox.
Yeah, it is rather warm, although there is air conditioning coming from somewhere. Now, it's either a washroom or the main office.
Yeah, the main office.
Thankfully.
Could have been bad.
It's an external fan coming in here. It's like, oh no, But if you're watching us, you can see where we are, and this is a lot of fun. This is why we do it. But if you're watching us Spotify, we also have video on Spotify, so it's not just listening. You can watch. So I would just go to Spotify and be done with it. Subscribe. It's all there. They'll go up.
Yeah,
it's easy. Or you do it on YouTube and just don't watch just I don't know.
See, Joe Rogan does his videos on Spotify.
Yeah.
And a couple of the other podcasts that I'll listen to or obviously watch are on video on Spotify.
Yeah.
But Jordan Peterson has his video on YouTube or Daily Wire, but he only has audio on Spotify.
You see.
So I'm back and forth, you see.
See, we've got the video on YouTube as well. So if you just go to the James Cast, subscribe to the James Cast, you'll get all of these podcasts and the shorts.
Therefore, we are better than Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. Because you know, kudos to Jordan Peterson, Mr. Peterson, we'll call him. But kudos to him because he does put up video. But we also put up the entire show in 2 parts so that you don't have to, invest in a 45 to an hour long stint. You can just watch, half an hour. But we also put up 18 to 20 shorts. So if you just need a quick blast of Glenn's, great knowledge, and you're just looking for something to inspire you, you also get that there. So yeah, subscribe. Go to the James Casts. You'll find it. It's the Powerworks Podcast.
Everything you'll ever need.
But we're afraid to ask for.
Exactly.
Oh, we are talking cars and things that are going on. News that came out last week. We didn't talk about this, and it's not in the notes. But Canada and the U.S. And some European countries are putting a 100% tax on BYD and Chinese-made automobiles. They feel that they are being dumped on those countries, that they have excess supply. They know they have excess supply, and they're creating those cars, and they know that they can unload them and essentially stifle homegrown markets.
Yeah.
Whether that's true or not, I do not know. But all I know is, as I was driving down Shakeside Road, giant BYD showroom, and I'm looking over going, yep, people in North America will never see these.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they do the right thing. You've got to, for the longest time, I've always, and that's relatively conservative policy for some people, but for the longest time, it's griped me that we don't have the industrial capabilities in the Western world anymore.
Yeah.
Seemingly. It makes absolutely
the Rust
no
Belt
sense.
in the U.S. There's not nearly the manufacturing there used to be.
When you've got a city, when you've got Michigan that goes from the 1960s being America's wealthiest to 2015 America's poorest.
Yeah.
Now obviously that means that the economy wasn't sustainable. You can't just rely on one thing, but at least have some of that one thing still. There's just nothing. The fact that we can't produce these cars now, obviously, and this goes into the whole, climate change and environmental issues that are on everybody's sort of back of their minds. But you've got zero, or almost zero, effectively zero regulation in China for producing a lithium battery for a car, producing the body and chassis and everything else of the car. And then you've got the European and North American regulation, which is strict. But the only people that are paying for that are the people that want to buy the product.
Yeah.
But then the Chinese ones are so cheap because they've had none of that regulation. The labour's cheaper. They've got no regulation. They can do whatever they want with waste products. They can do whatever they want producing the steel in the factories and the aluminium. And they can, they have far, far greater in terms of size workforce.
Oh, it's and the workforce that work, and this is the problem in industrialized countries, is the workforce is expensive. And China's workforce is not expensive.
No.
India's workforce, not expensive. So they have a trade advantage right off the bat anyway.
Yeah.
Which is essentially why, and so there's a small hypocritical thing that's involved in all of this conversation. We're talking electric cars being made in China and exported. Pretty much all of our electrical things are made in China and exported. Yet somehow we've managed to jack up the price of our iPhones that are being produced in those plants and our Samsungs and.
Yeah. Well, you look at somebody like Elon Musk, right? He had to basically leave California.
Yeah.
The guy is like the epitome of the American dream. Immigrant, one of the richest, if not the richest man in the world. And then he employs thousands and thousands of people. Thousands of people he employs, and he wants to build plants and this and make cars and make batteries and this and that. And he had to leave a state in America, that by all accounts has lost almost $1 trillion over the last few years in the value of their economy. And he's gone to Texas, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, okay, he's still within the US, but it's pathetic, and then look, the reaction to Chinese mass production and Chinese vehicles in this regard is natural from any country. But again, the problem is, if you are somebody that wants a cheap vehicle and you live in one of these countries, in Canada, or if you live in America, and you can't afford to buy a Tesla Model 3, because let's not forget, Elon Musk said that Model 3 would be $35,000.
Yeah.
You can't get a wheel for that. So
Yeah.
you're really paying sort of $50K. That's a lot of money, and especially in America where, credit card debts and all that stuff is as high as it's ever been. You've then got a situation where, okay, well, I can't pay $50K for the Tesla, but I really would like to have an electric car. There's a Chinese one available for 22. Oh, hang on a minute, it's 44 now because they're putting 100%.
Yeah.
Which, so again, the people that pay for that is the end user, because they can't get hold of a vehicle that they could probably afford. And what's the knock-on effect to the economy? If it was a case of, well, no, we produce 300,000 vehicles a year, and once we've sold those 300,000 vehicles every year, then we'll start to allow imports coming in. That's fine, but they don't really produce much, do they? It's not like they're saying, well, we need to sell our own cars first. They're just putting a tariff on.
Yeah.
And nothing else has improved. There's no extra production of vehicles. There's no extra anything. So the knock-on effect is something that you could debate about for hours. But it's a natural reaction, that, like we said, China have an unfair advantage when it comes to producing anything that requires a factory. And it's gonna have to change at some point. It's going to have to change at some point, and what the answer to it is, I don't know, because it should be fair trade in a way that you allow someone to sell your product in their country and they can sell theirs in yours, but at the same time, the playing field isn't level when they're being produced.
No, this is an ongoing political economic discussion, that's for sure.
Yeah,
something to scratch your head about as you start thinking about the holiday season coming. It's only 3 months away.
Yeah. Right. Thanks, James.
Yeah, just a quick reminder. I thought I wanted to talk just a little bit right off the bat about something that I noticed in the garage last week. And as I was walking around, I noticed that there's only one vehicle with this, seemingly this issue. But you had multiple engines being overhauled and repaired last week. And DJ was walking me through the scenarios for them all.
Yeah.
You're just one garage. This seems to me this is a big job. This is a big ticket item. But when you're walking around a garage and you've got 2-3 cars at a time with engine issues, that the engine is out of the vehicle, that's big. What's going on?
Well, sometimes it's cheaper just to change an engine for a complete second-hand engine, because whilst it's still a big job, it's a lot less than stripping an engine and rebuilding it. Also, stripping an engine and rebuilding it, the parts aren't always available. And if they are, they're expensive. So not only do you have more labour, but you've then got a massive expensive part.
So when you strip down an engine, there isn't it doesn't come in a box. You don't just go to Toyota and say, okay, I've got a Fortuner, I've taken out the engine, I need the engine piece kit, kind of like a Lego. No.
So
well, that's a pain in the neck for you.
What you would have on some vehicles is you'll get what they call a top-end overhaul and a bottom-end overhaul. So the top-end overhaul refers to the head, cylinder head or heads. And the bottom-end refers to the cylinder block. It's more common to do a top-end than a bottom-end, because by the time you get into repairing and overhauling the bottom end of an engine, you're talking about quite severe machine work of grinding the cranks, rebalancing the crank.
Okay, so that engine's done. Basically, if you're rebalancing the cranks, forget it.
9 times out of 10, it's too expensive to do. But there are situations where you won't be able to find a replacement engine, so you've got no choice. And often in that situation, what a lot of people will do is they'll take that opportunity to then, give the engine a bit more output. So you might, if you've got to grind the crank and put new bearings on and do everything to the bottom end, then you might, if you can, you'll bore out the cylinders and put an oversized piston in it. You may change the type of piston that's got a different crown on it to increase or decrease the compression. If you might be adding a turbo to it. All these sort of things people do when they have to rebuild an engine. Now, this isn't anything to do with, it'd be natural to say it's to do with the floods and stuff recently. It isn't anything to do with that. I think the reason we've got more engines in now than we've had typically over the my last 12 years here, and that includes being in AAA, where we did a lot of old Land Rovers where we would rebuild them all. the reason I think now we'd see more engines is people have been keeping their cars for longer.
Mm.
A lot of people got themselves in financial difficulty during COVID, no fault of their own. So the car that starts every morning and gets them where they need to go, and for a long time didn't have to do anything, will just be sort of bottom of the list when it comes to paying for your food shopping, your school fees and your rent. Your car, it starts and there's no warning lights on and it's getting me to work and back, it's taking the kids to school and back, I'll leave it. I can't afford 1,000 dirhams this month, and that's natural, right?
Yeah.
And over the last 3-4 years after, as we've been through and come out of COVID, I just think the cars are now starting to show the signs of it. We had no supply of new cars. We've run out of a lot of used cars because of the floods. People have been, like I say, they've had them sat for, some people lost their jobs over COVID and the cars would have been sat effectively doing nothing other than a few kilometres here and there for 6, 12, 18 months. And these things aren't good. So all those things together, and that's why I think we've seen a lot more engines. I mean, we are just a normal garage. Everybody, like you say, there's hundreds just around us that will be seeing the same kind of thing. I don't have any data on it, but what I do know is compared to 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we're doing 3-4 times as many engine repairs or replacements as we would have been. So there's got to be a reason for it, and I think logically that would be why.
Is there a danger in buying a used engine from the scrapyard?
Always. Yeah, so what we try to do is we try to get the one that's still in a vehicle. Now that slows things down, because what that means is that then when we agree to take it, we've then got to wait for the scrapyard to remove it.
So they remove it, not you.
Yeah, so what we'll try to do is we'll try to find it in the vehicle, and the reason for that is that they can put a battery on it and start it. We can see that it runs. That's a big thing. Not always a possibility. Sometimes we're looking for a rare engine. There's only 2 or 3 of them around and they're already removed. These scrapyards will get a car in and it'll be processed. Body panels, engine, gearbox, interiors, everything will be off that car within 12 hours. So you've got to catch it at right time. But we do that from time to time where we can. We will say, look, no, we'll wait till one comes in. If we can't see it running in the vehicle, then what we'll do is we'll hook the battery up to the starter motor and we'll do a compression test on it. And we will do a cylinder leakage test on it. So that's where we put each cylinder to top dead center when all the valves are closed. The cylinder's at the highest point. We put air into that cylinder and then we measure the amount of pressure going in compared to the pressure coming out and make sure it's not leaking. Obviously, before any of this happens, we drain the oil. We make sure there's oil in it and we'll turn it over by hand a few times. And then that's the best. That really is the best we can do. Then we'll put it in, and providing everything passed okay, 9 times out of 10, maybe 99 times out of 100, we'll have no issues with it. There might be some sort of ancillary systems on there, drive belts, pulleys, and things like that that we normally can take from the existing engine. So we know the condition of them, we know the age of them. If the existing engine, let's say, failed in a way because of overheating, the rest of the components on the coolant system, radiator and all these things like that, electrical fuel pumps, they will be replaced. But yeah, it's we do as much as we can on a used engine, but the big thing of it is explaining to the customer that we only get usually 5 to 10 days, depending on what the supplier is, to fit the engine and test it. And if it's no good, they won't give us our money back unless they don't have another one. What they'll do is they'll swap it for another one.
Oh, so how from a start to finish on an ideal world, if you've got the engine from the wrecker and you've got this vehicle that's come in, how long is the turnaround with an engine job?
Well, we have to have it in and in a turn the key running state, not necessarily drive on the road, but turn the key to run. We have to do that within 5 days.
Man, that's pressure for you guys.
Yeah, we have to do that within 5 days so that we can, if it's no good, send it back and get another one. Now, obviously, from our point of view, we can't then, we explain the risks to the customer, but we also take on some of that risk in that, and this is why we use only a few suppliers. let's say you bring the car in for an engine and we say, look, you bring the car in with a misfire and we say there's a crack on the cylinder block. We need to change the engine. It's the cheapest way to do it. You approve it. We say, okay, we've got a second-hand engine here. It's going to be 10,000 dirhams. We've got 5 days warranty. We'll fit it and test it. If it's okay, we'll do our road testing. Great. If it's not, we're going to have to take it out. Now, we can't expect you, even though we've explained the risk, we can't expect you to pay the labour twice, 3, 4 times, right? So we have to take that risk. To offset that risk, what we do is we try to use the same supplier, because oftentimes what will happen is customers will come to us and say, can you get us a part? And we'll say, unfortunately, we can't find it. Well, I found it. Okay, great. Please bring it in. Well, why can't you do it? You're the garage. Well, we could go to a different supplier that we've never used before, but we have no equity with them. We've got no goodwill with them, no service history with them, nothing. So if we buy a part that turns up wrong, if we buy a part that's no good, if we buy a part that fails within days, we're not sure, and we can't take the risk that they would support us on that. The chances are they wouldn't, because we've just spent 500 dirhams with them once. We've never been in a long-standing relationship with them. So from their point of view, they just say, who's this garage trying it on with one of our parts? You know. So we have situations where, like with second-hand engines, that we will try to use a reliable source so that we can avoid having to do the job 2 and 3. It does happen. Sometimes we have to take an engine and swap it for a different one. But most of the time, that's before we've fitted it. We've seen the problem on the floor before it goes in.
Right.
We got the one we did in there the other day, that we took the injector rail out so that we could clean and service the injectors on the engine that arrived, and one of the ends of the injectors was snapped into the head. You know, we've got to take the head off at that point, so it's no point send it back and we'll have a different engine. And, you know, within 4 or 5 hours it was here. And then they took the other one away. So, you know, we wouldn't necessarily have got that if we'd never worked with these people before. We might have found one cheaper, we might have found one quicker, but we wouldn't have had that same support. So this is why we keep it to a limited number of suppliers, so we have as much support from them as we can.